It was a cold, moonless night, and the wind howled through the empty streets. Sarah tightened her scarf around her neck as she walked home from her late-night shift at the diner. The town was small, and the shortcut through Willow Creek Road saved her a good 20 minutes. Everyone warned her not to take that path at night, but she had always dismissed the stories as small-town superstition. The road stretched out in front of her, flanked by dense woods on both sides. The trees, skeletal in the dim light, seemed to lean in as though listening. Her boots crunched against the gravel, the only sound besides the rustling leaves. She couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't alone. But every time she glanced over her shoulder, the road behind her was empty. Halfway down the road, she noticed something peculiar. A faint light flickered in the distance. It wasn't the warm glow of a street lamp or the steady beam of a flashlight. It was erratic, almost as if it were pulsing. Her pace quickened. She told herself it was probably a firefly or someone with a lantern, but deep down she knew it was neither. As she drew closer, she realized the light was coming from an old, abandoned house that sat just off the road. She had passed it countless times during the day and never given it a second thought. But tonight, its broken windows and sagging porch seemed menacing. The light spilled out from one of the upstairs windows, casting long, eerie shadows over the overgrown yard. Sarah tried to keep walking, her instincts screaming at her to ignore it. But her curiosity got the better of her. Against her better judgment, she stepped off the road and onto the creaking wooden path leading to the house. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if unseen hands were trying to pull her back. The front door was slightly ajar, revealing a sliver of darkness inside. "Hello," she called out, her voice trembling. No response. She pushed the door open, and it groaned on its hinges. The air inside was thick and cold, carrying the faint scent of mildew and decay. Her breath fogged in front of her as she stepped inside. The interior was even more decrepit than she imagined. Peeling wallpaper hung in tatters, and the floorboards groaned beneath her weight. The flickering light came from the staircase leading up to the second floor. As she approached, she noticed something unsettling. The light wasn't coming from a lamp or candle. It seemed to be emanating from the walls themselves, a pale, unnatural glow that made her skin crawl. She hesitated at the bottom of the stairs, her heart pounding. A faint whisper drifted down from above. She couldn't make out the words, but the tone was urgent, almost pleading. "Is someone there?" she called out again, her voice barely above a whisper. The house seemed to hold its breath in response. Against every ounce of common sense, she climbed the stairs. The whispers grew louder, more distinct. They weren't in any language she recognized, but they seemed to echo inside her head. When she reached the top, she saw the source of the light. A door at the end of the hallway was ajar, the glow spilling out like liquid moonlight. Her hand trembled as she pushed the door open. The room was empty except for a single chair in the center. On the chair sat an old, tattered diary, its cover embossed with a strange, swirling symbol. The whispers stopped the moment she stepped inside, replaced by an oppressive silence. Drawn by a force she couldn't explain, she picked up the diary. The moment her fingers touched it, the room seemed to spin. The walls melted away, replaced by a swirling void of black and gray. She felt weightless, as though she were falling, yet her feet remained firmly planted on the ground. Suddenly, she was no longer in the house. She stood in the middle of a vast, barren field, under a blood-red sky. Shadows moved at the edges of her vision, too quick to focus on. The whispers returned, louder now, overlapping and echoing until they became a deafening roar. A figure emerged from the shadows. It was tall and gaunt, its face obscured by a hood. Its hands, pale and bony, extended toward her, and the diary flew from her grip into its grasp. The figure's head tilted, as though examining her. Then, in a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, it spoke. "You should not have come here." The words sent a jolt of fear through her. She tried to run, but her feet wouldn't move. The figure raised a hand, and the field around her dissolved into darkness. She was back in the house, standing in the room with the glowing door. But the diary was gone, and the whispers had returned, softer now, almost mocking. She fled down the stairs, her only thought to get as far away from the house as possible. But when she reached the front door, it wouldn't budge. No matter how hard she pulled, it stayed firmly shut. The whispers grew louder, filling her head until she thought she would scream. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, everything went silent. The door swung open on its own, and she stumbled out into the cool night air. She ran without looking back, not stopping until she reached her front door. For days after, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Shadows seemed to move in her peripheral vision, and she heard faint whispers when she was alone. One night, as she lay in bed, she noticed something on her nightstand. It was the diary, its strange symbol glowing faintly in the dark. She didn't touch it. She didn't even breathe. But as she stared at it, the whispers began again, louder this time, and she knew that whatever she had encountered on Willow Creek Road wasn't done with her yet.